There are entire books written on the psychology of riding motorcycles and why we love to ride so much. This week, I learned something and I thought I would share what I learned with you on why we enjoy riding motorcycles so much. I have two daughters. My oldest is 13 and my youngest is 12. And my kids have always loved Halloween. Picking out costumes, deciding what they were going to be, getting dressed up on Halloween night, running around the neighborhood and collecting candy. I mean, what kid doesn't enjoy that? This year, my youngest daughter wanted to be a knight. So we looked all over for a knight costume for a girl that she was happy with. And she never found anything till she found something online. We ordered that for her, and she was really happy with the costume that she got. And all that was left was to find a sword for our mighty knight to go out on Halloween night. My older daughter couldn't get committed to any costume idea. She looked at several, and she was interested in looking at them, but she couldn't find anything that she liked. Well, as the big day approached, it was the night before Halloween, I picked both girls up at school, and we were going to run to a couple of party shops in search for a sword for a knight and a costume idea for my older daughter. Both girls had a lot of fun at the party stores looking at all the costumes and the costume ideas and all the scary things that were on the shelves. And my older daughter walked the stores, but she never could commit to anything. And as I watched her walk around the store, I began to notice that it was like she was remembering the good times of Halloween past instead of planning for something for the future. Well, after 2 stores and no ideas, she finally decided that she would just wear her costume from last year and that she was done looking. My younger had found the perfect sword, so we purchased our knight sword and we headed home for the evening. On Halloween day, it was pouring rain all day here in North Texas. And when my girls got home from school, it was still raining really hard. We had a backup plan in case it rained all evening. We could go to our church, and the church was passing out candy. The kids could come in and trick-or-treat indoors. But my girls always enjoyed walking the neighborhood, so we were hoping that that would still work out. Well, as the sun began to set, the rain passed by, and my older daughter finally made a confession. She finally just said, "I really don't want to trick-or-treat this year." So it wasn't a matter of finding a costume. Her heart just wasn't in it anymore. She had gotten to that age where she didn't want to go trick-or-treating. My wife and I certainly aren't going to force her to go trick-or-treating, so we agreed that it was okay for her to stay home, but that didn't make my younger daughter too happy. She was still into this. She had picked out the perfect costume that she was excited about, and she was looking forward to going trick-or-treating with her big sister like she always had. After some discussion, my younger decided to go upstairs and put on her costume, and she came down in a really cool-looking knight costume, but she had a sad look on her face. My wife and I offered to take her to the church because she didn't want to walk around the neighborhood by herself, and her heart wasn't into that. We tried to talk her into going out in the neighborhood here, and she finally just said, "I really want to just trick-or-treat with another kid. I want to be out and enjoy this with another kid." After some discussion, we finally got our younger daughter out the door, and our timing was perfect. Our neighbors across the street have twins, and I think they're both about 8 years old. And my girls have always played with them and kind of been big sisters for them when they would see them out front, and have played with them on occasion. But we asked if we could walk around with them as they trick-or-treated, and they were really excited to have my younger daughter and a big kid to them go trick-or-treating with them. So it gave my daughter that excuse that she needed to be a kid, to run around from house to house, collect candy, and be a knight in shining armor for the evening. She had fun running around with the other kids. She was obviously the oldest and the tallest one there, but she enjoyed it and had fun with the Halloween experience. But it just wasn't the same without her big sister. We walked quite a few blocks trick-or-treating with her, and after a while we told her it was time to go home. She was a little bit disappointed and not ready to go yet, but she quickly agreed. And as soon as we made that decision, she headed on a beeline straight for the house, walking out quite a ways in front of us. Well, she was starting to get a little ways out in front of us, more than we were comfortable with. She rounded the corner towards our street, heading to the house. And as we got to the corner, we noticed she had stopped in a driveway that had the porch light on. She pointed up at the house, and we said, "Yeah, go ahead." She ran up to the door, knocked on the door, said trick or treat, got her candy, said thank you. She came back down and then headed straight to the house. She was done. We went into the house, and my older daughter was watching television. My younger, who in traditions in the past would stop to see what she had gotten and go through her candy. Instead, she headed straight upstairs and took off her costume before coming back down. We still hadn't had dinner yet, so I went out and got a couple of pizzas for the family, and I realized that just a few hours earlier, my wife and kids had come home from school, but I was bringing pizza home for my wife and 2 young ladies. I'm proud of my girls, and I'll always love them, and I'll always look at them as my kids. As kids, they can't wait to grow up. There's so many things as a kid that you can't do. Can't ride in the front seat of a car. You can't stay at home alone. You can't stay up past your bedtime. There are certain TV shows or movies that you can't watch. But when you grow up, you realize that being a kid was the best times of your life. As a kid, there's no bills to pay. There's no boss to answer to. You don't have to decide to be a Democrat or Republican. You just have to be a kid. And if you want to dress up as a knight and carry a sword around the neighborhood and collect candy, it's perfectly acceptable to do so. As I turned in for the night and thinking about my own childhood and the childhood of my kids, it dawned on me the parallels to riding a motorcycle. I mean, we think sometimes that we're tough bikers, but in a lot of ways, it's just a dress-up game. We put a helmet on and we put a jacket with armor in it. We put gloves on and boots, and we mount this dragon out in the garage. The push of a button, that dragon comes to life and starts roaring and rumbling underneath us. We pull out of the garage and we fly just feet above the pavement down the road, directing that dragon wherever we want it to go. Some people are really skilled at riding the dragon. Some people just don't want to get bucked off in the middle of the street. But everybody gets off a motorcycle with a smile from ear to ear on their face. There's just something about riding a motorcycle that can't be replicated by anything else. Riding a motorcycle still reaches that inner kid in all of us. It touches that place in us where there's a sense of wonder and there's a sense of awe, and just the joy of riding takes complete control of all the cares and the concerns that we have in this world. The next time you strap on a helmet and mount your roaring beast, I hope that the joys of being a kid will inspire your ride and your sense of adventure that only motorcycling can bring. One of the few things I've found in this life that compares to the wonder of being a kid is the joy of riding a motorcycle. Take care, my friends, and until next week, this is Kevin with MCrider, and I'll see you on the road. MCrider is made possible by our friends on Patreon. To learn how to support MCrider, get access to the field guide and the forums, go to mcrider.com/support.